Recording in progress.
All righty. Part 2. And before we start this presentation, let's just have another quick word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this time. Let this presentation accomplish that which you please, and let it not return to you void. Amen. All right. Minute Message with Micah here. And if y'all watched the Pinocchio one, you'll see that that was the last slide of that presentation. This is the first slide of this presentation. And we're going to keep going with it. And let's just see where it takes us. So going down the rabbit hole. Where does the rabbit hole lead? Right? Where does the rabbit hole lead? Hollywood. No, it's like Hollywood. Yeah, up on a hill. Yeah, Hollywood. Yes, that's not a good place. I mean, beautifully, geographically, it's a beautiful place. Ideologically, culturally, it's a cesspool. That's what it is. Beautiful place though. Great weather, beautiful views. All right, so I have a theory, and this is a theory. I'm pretty sure I'm onto something. It's undeveloped, but it's a theory. Hollywood worships Lucifer, the light bearer. That's who they think Lucifer is. Hollywood has been used as an instrument of the devil to mesmerize, desensitize, and predictively program people into accepting a lower and lower standard of absolute morality throughout the generations. I think I'm onto something with that. All the while using their studios, stages, and stadiums as a platform to perform satanic rituals to their god, Lucifer, the devil, and Satan. I think those are two fair statements right there. And this has been accomplished by what I'm calling the hook, net, and release method. And you'll see what I mean by that. It's very similar to Stockholm syndrome, whereas if anyone has studied any kind of criminal law or watched some forensic files, Stockholm syndrome, there's a traumatic event. It could be like a bank robbery and they see someone get shot, and then there's isolation, they're locked in the bank, and then they indoctrinate them like, if y'all just stay quiet, if y'all just do as we say, you'll go home, right? You'll go home to your family safe. There's a promised of reward. I was typing too fast. E's not even close to T. Okay. But that's Stockholm syndrome. Traumatic event, isolation, indoctrination, promise of reward. My theory, it's similar to it. There's indoctrination, a traumatic event, and then you're set free. I call it the hook, net, and release, right? Because if you're a fish and you got picked up in a net, the fisherman, he's got you. He could fillet you up right there, or he can pull the hook out of your mouth and release you, right? At any rate, it's traumatic, right? You're out of I'm sure fish can't breathe out of the water, right? And it's a traumatic event, and then you're set free. This is a theory I have, and I think it works. I'm onto something. This method is super effective by means of deception. I believe. Deception, I believe. It should have been, I wrote this real late at night last night. All right. In attracting an audience, I believe it's used in attracting an audience to get them to see what Hollywood really wants them to see, thus planting the seeds in the minds of the masses of people that watch its programming. And it's called programming for a reason. Over the generations, I believe Hollywood has introduced into popular culture and normalized Antichrist teachings and redirected the minds of the people in every direction away from the Christ. And it's not like Hollywood is fixated on one philosophy, one theology. No, Hollywood will send you every which direction, right? Up, down, like just as long as it's away from Christ. That's what Hollywood does. And I'm going to illustrate that here. My theory, going down the rabbit hole. And so when we think of Lucifer, he's a cherub. He's a created being. And if we've studied our Bible in depth, this is what a cherub this is what Satan looks like. This is what I believe when the serpent came to Eve in the garden, he appeared in this form right here, right? I don't think it was a snake. And this is who Hollywood, so you got Lucifer, and then under his authority is Hollywood. And this is Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. And that great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. And how does he do it? He's got instruments, he's got tools and programs. He's got Hollywood. And Hollywood is, oh man, they can definitely get you to think wrong and get you to think something that you shouldn't be thinking. And under the umbrella of Hollywood, there's music, and that's, don't get me started on music. I'm gonna focus just a little bit on the movies right here. And fashion. It's like fashion. Oh yeah, fashion. Yes. But movies. We're gonna go down this vein right here. And they all worship the devil. All right, so kind of going back to Pinocchio, and I didn't put this in the previous video, but if you look right here, in 1937, and like I said, that's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs made in 1937. That was a tip of the hat right there for that technology right there, right? 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was made. And if you think about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, there is some subtle Christian theology in there, right? Snow White dies, and then, you know, what's the whole thing with Snow White? One day my prince will come, right? She's waiting for her prince. And what's Jesus also been known as? The Prince of Peace, right? And he gives her that, well, she dies, right? She dies from the devil, the apple, the fruit from the devil, right? And then her prince, the Prince of Peace, you know, kisses her, and she wakes up. And then the very last scene, it's almost like an image of heaven, right? She's on the horse, the white horse, and the prince is leading her into this like kingdom, this, you know, everlasting. It's actually not a bad story. Very original, very original. It had a Christian undertone to it, without a doubt, without a doubt. That's the hook, right? Oh, Disney makes, you know, good, you know, Christian undertone movies. That's the hook. And then we get Pinocchio, right? Planting the seed of the Antichrist. That's the net right there. That is the net. And so you see that they hooked in with Snow White, they got you in the net, and then there's your traumatic event. They planted the seed, and in 1940 it wasn't as traumatic as it is today, right? And I will show you what I mean. There's your traumatic event, and then the next movie that Disney releases is Bambi, and it's like that wimpy deer. That's why I laughed in the first video of Walt Disney, you know, drawing Bambi, because Bambi is just a story of like a little boy and he grows up and becomes a man, right? It's like I really don't care much for Bambi. I think I saw where his mom dies, right? She gets shot in the meadow. Stay out of the meadow. But he grows up and he gets his rack of horns and fights and gets his dough. And that's the formula. That's the formula. Right? And I'm going to display this time and time again. And this is what I've come up with. Macaulay Culkin, November 16th, 1990, the world was privy to Home Alone. and it was a hit in the box office, right? Families across America can rally behind this movie right here. There was a huge marketing campaign. It was like, the posters with all the traps. It was like, it was cool. People liked it. And so Kevin McAllister, well, I'm fast. So November 16th, 1990, when they released it into movie theaters, Macaulay Culkin was 11 years old in 1990. 1991, he did that movie My Girl, right? And then in 1992, 2 years later, they released Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, right? Kevin McAllister, the character, the little boy, that he won the hearts and audiences across America. The Hook, The Hook was a family Christmas movie, and then he plays a murderous child. That's the hook. That's the hook right there. All right. People can rally behind Macaulay Culkin and, Home Alone, right? But then 1 year later, less than a year later, there's a movie, and sadly, I saw this movie. It was dark. Oh my, this was a dark movie. Whew. It's like an evil kind of dark. It's called The Good Son, released in 1993, rated R. And so in 1993, he was 14 years old. And I find it interesting. You got to be 17 with an ID to see an R-rated movie. But he's 14, and Hollywood allowed it. Yes, they did. And, it's like, oh, it's Macaulay Culkin. Oh, he's in a new movie. Let's go see it, right? And then it's just like, it is evil. So evil. It was a really bad, dark film. But then a year later, immediately thereafter, Hollywood time wise, Richie Rich, family entertainment, right? Release. It's a formula. And he was and I saw Richie Rich. I saw all of them. But Richie Rich it truly was a good family movie. And this movie was completely apart from this movie right here. And it's like they planted, if anyone saw this movie, I don't watch it, but he is a murderous child, and it's just so dark. I can't explain it. But there's a big scene in there, and it's just, in 1993, the world, it was a different world back then, but for this film to be released in 1993, it didn't help morality, right? It definitely set a lower standard of morality, because it got people thinking, is that acceptable? It was just really bad. It was just really bad. But it follows my formula, my theory. This definitely follows my theory. Daniel Radcliffe, right? Harry Potter. In 2001, when the first Harry Potter came out, Daniel Radcliffe was 12 years old. And then I didn't realize they made this. I worked at the movie theater when one came out. So I saw the first Harry Potter. Oh, I didn't realize they made 8 of them. Good night. So by the time they were done making these movies, it was 2011, and the whole world got down with Harry Potter and Daniel Radcliffe, right? So by the time Harry Potter started and ended, he was from 12 to 23 years old. And then next year, he does a movie called The Woman in Black. I never heard of this movie, but I was just researching this, and I saw the preview. It's like, oh, it's a dark movie. But then, because you're a wizard, Harry, right? It's like, oh, okay, wizard. We can get down with a wizard. They put him in this movie here, and then next year, and this is the net, horns. I never saw it. I've seen a preview for it. It just looked really, really bad. And I remember in 2013, and this is at a time where in 2013 I was just not living right. I was not, and whew, I was not living right. Um, I saw this preview, and it's like I even knew this was bad, right? Nothing, anything I'd be interested in, but the they hook you with this character, right? Everybody can get down with Harry Potter, and it's so deceptive because a wizard. What are we commanded to do with wizards? There shouldn't be a wizard found among us. And then this, right? It follows my formula. And like I said, I never saw the movie. I saw the preview. This image was not in the preview. And so think of all the little kids, the boys and girls alike, that looked up to Harry Potter as a moral and respectable character. I think I saw whichever one with Dobby, the little house elf or whatever. And then the dude, Slytherin, like kicks him and he's a slave. And then Harry, at the end of the movie, he puts a sock in the book. And then, like Harry basically saved Dobby, right? And he's like this, moral character doing the right thing. And people rallied behind that. And then he goes and worships, and this is worship, the image of the American mythology of Satan right here. I mean, it's awful. It is awful, but this is Hollywood right here. This is what they do to your children. And so, and it's like, maybe not so much for Macaulay. Well, from 11 to 15, that's definitely growing up, right? But from age 12 to age 24, it's like yeah, when you grow up, when you're a kid, you do kid things. When you grow up, you do adult things. And it's just it's okay, right? You grow up and you worship the devil. That's what you do. It's okay. And then Miley Cyrus. And all this is my own. This is all my own. So Hannah Montana from March 2006 to January 2011 on the Disney Channel. There's that Disney again, right? Good girl Hannah Montana was on TV for these 5 years, almost, yeah, 4 years, 10 months, close enough, 9 months. But she was 14 when she did Hannah Montana. And then she, career wise, Miley, her artist name, Miley Cyrus. She did that song Party in the USA. She was 17 right there. And so it's like, oh, Hannah Montana. And now she's Miley Cyrus. It's like, okay, we can get behind that. And then when she's 20, from 17 to 20 in 2013, the world had to put up with Wrecking Ball. Like how many little girls really liked Hannah Montana? How many parents bought Hannah Montana, the sheet, the bed sheets and the comforter sets, and I'm sure there was toys to go with it. I do know there was a comforter set because I saw it at Walmart, and it's just like, who is Hannah Montana? And it's like, oh, that's Hannah Montana. And then Wrecking Ball. Now, call me skeptical, but that looks like pornography to me, right? But the little girls, they got hooked in with Hannah Montana, and then Miley Cyrus, right? While she was Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus at the same time. And then a few years later, Wrecking Ball. And then it's just like, just to see the lower standard of morality, I put this verse in there. The glory of a woman, men, it's a shame for men to have long hair, and the glory of a woman is her hair. She should have long hair. Ugh, just a lower, and like she just Debauchery is what it is. And that all follows my path. And then after this, you really didn't hear anything else about it. You really didn't hear any, like, Miley Cyrus. Like, nope. They made a big fuss about this. But it follows the pattern, that follows the formula. And these are just a few examples that I can, off the top of my head, come up with. And so Deuteronomy 18, verse 10 through 13 in our King James, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or daughter to pass through the fire, Moloch, or that uses divination, or an observer of the times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. A necromancer is someone who summons up the dead. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and here's the key right here. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out before thee. Thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God. And it's like, not a very popular film, but The Sword and the Stone from Disney, me and my brothers, we liked that. It was a funny movie. It really was funny. But you got Arthur before he was King Arthur, and Merlin, right? And the little owl Archimedes. It was just a funny so many good references. But Merlin's a wizard, right? But he's a good wizard. And that's what's so deceiving, right? There shall not be found among you there shall not be found among you a wizard. It's so deceiving, right? And I think this is why a lot of people, they get put off of the Bible and they think it's antiquated, because it's like, well, Merlin was a good guy. How can you tell Merlin he's got to go, right? It's like, and that's why people, they get put off of the Bible. The Little Mermaid, another one, as a person, it's a favorite of mine. I really did like The Little Mermaid, but Ursula was the sea witch. She was a witch. And then Jafar, and he, a sorcerer, an enchanter. He had that snake staff, that cobra snake staff with the ruby eyes, and he used that to enchant and charm, bewitch, if you will, the Sultan, right? Jasmine's dad, he was a sorcerer. And then I find it interesting, at the end of Aladdin, what he becomes a giant snake. Wonder where that came. A snake. And then Ursula becomes a giant witch, right? This is Disney's really like, but everyone they sell it as family, in it's a kids movie. Just because it's a cartoon doesn't mean it's a kids movie. Just because it's a cartoon doesn't mean it's for kids. Family Guy. That's what I got to say about that. But it's hard to reconcile, the Sword and Stone. Merlin it's hard to reckon with. It really is. It's hard to adjudicate this. And so here's something. Harry Potter, that franchise, and this is probably just a low figure here, $7,700,000,000, $8 billion that Harry Potter, that's got to be higher than that. But Harry Potter has made some money, which means people are watching it. They're buying into it, is what they're doing. They're buying into wizardry. That's what they're doing. Doctor Strange. I didn't even know who Doctor Strange was. I thought it was like a show from the 70s, like a cop, like a Miami Vice of the 70s, Doctor Strange. No, apparently it's worth $1 billion. And it's like, what? And then you got that third eye right there. We'll talk about that in a second. And then I'm sure we're all familiar with the Lord of the Rings, right? Gandalf. How can we not get down with Gandalf, right? Like the wise man who knows what's right, needs help to do the right thing. $15 billion. People are buying into that one. Wizard, sorcerer, wizard. What's that say about American culture? What does that say? Now, we're not trying to drive out wizards and sorcerers, that's for sure. We're very accepting of them, almost like we can't get enough of them. And then that third eye, oh my, it's so evil. In spirituality, the third eye often symbolizes a state of enlightenment. The third eye is often associated with religious visions, clairvoyance, the ability to observe chakras and auras, precognition, and out-of-body experiences, all of which God clearly states in his word to have no part of, right? That's all evil, evil stuff. In Galatians, it tells us, now the works of the flesh are made manifest, which are the adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulance, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and the such like, of which I tell you before, and I have told you in times past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. If you don't inherit the kingdom of God, where are you going to go? The lake of fire, right? Like, this is really, really bad. Not good at all. And then Exodus 22:18, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. In America, back in its founding, we had our Salem witch trials. Maybe our founding fathers knew how to treat a witch. Maybe. Famous witches. That's a witch? That is a witch. And who is that? Oh, come on. Y'all know. That's Samantha Bee, right? From Bewitched. Bewitched. Bewitched is an American, it's a fantasy situational comedy television series. Oh, it's fantasy. Here we go. It's fake. It's not real. It's fantasy, right? But they sold witchcraft as funny. They sell it as comedy. And it was so funny, from 1964 to 1972, so 8 years when it ran. In 2005, they did a romantic comedy. Oh, it's funny. It's romantic. It's a romantic comedy, right? Yes, romantic comedy. But it's not surprising that they cast Nicole Kidman to play Samantha Bee. Yeah, she kind of looks like her, right? But fun fact about Nicole Kidman, she played a witch before in 1998. Practical Magic, along with Sandra Bullock, right? I never saw this movie. To be honest, I never saw any of this, right? This was a little bit before my time, and they didn't really show it on TV when I was growing up. Now, I Love Lucy. I've seen some I Love Lucy. That was funny. um, but I never saw 1998. I was 13, and a chick flick. I'd consider this a chick flick. Like I just had couldn't get like no common ground with it. Never saw it, but I'm sure it has to do with witchcraft, which as Christians we're commanded not to endorse any of that. And it's interesting in 1998, right? So they get kind of following that formula. It's like, oh, Nicole Kidman, she's a respectable actress. She's an A-list celebrity. 1999, they hook her and Tom Cruise get hooked up and they do a movie together as husband and wife, I believe. Eyes Wide Shut, July 16th. Oh my goodness, look at those dates. October 16th, 1998. So 9 months later, less than a year later, she's got another movie in movie theaters. I never saw this movie. I really don't know what it's about. Um, the Illuminati, secret societies, you know, drinking. I don't know. I just know it's evil, right? But it's like they hook you with practical magic. There's the hook, and then they got you in the net with eyes wide shut. That traumatic event right there. And then another fun fact about Nicole Kidman, it's like, it's funny. In 1998, she, young and youthful. 2022 looks young and youthful. Well, I'm gonna say she don't look. I don't know how old she is, but she don't look like 20 years older, right? Wonder what their secret is. But Vanity Fair and had her do an endorsement for eating bugs. Huh. Like, oh, they want us to eat bugs. And this is how she's a puppet of Hollywood. She's an instrument. She works for Hollywood, right? She's part of that she works down the rabbit hole. Like when you go to work and you drive down the freeway and go to an office building, well, she drives to Hollywood. She drives down the rabbit hole. That's where she works, right? It's bad, 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 bad. And so when you see just how much America is endorsing witchcraft, wizardry, all these things that subtly plant the seed of accepting the Antichrist. By and large, America is not saying, "Hey, yeah, no, we're not gonna watch this movie. We're not gonna support it." No, they can't get enough of it. That's why they're mesmerized by it and they're desensitized by it, and they have been programmed to accept. That's all part of my theory. And so we have a righteous judge on the throne, and it's not like God just kind of sits back and it's like, well, I guess I'll judge the world and go to work, at the end of the world. But that's not until another 1,000 years or so. I'll get off my throne in 1,000 years when it's time to judge the earth. No, he doesn't. God is very active. He judged the world with the flood. He judged the two cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Right? We know there's going to be a judgment day at the end. But between, Sodom and Gomorrah and now, is it possible America's going to get judged? Right? Because it's like, no, God has blessed this net. We're a Christian nation. Are we? A lot, and this isn't popular, but when Obama got up on whatever podium platform and said America is no longer a Christian nation, everyone was up in arms. They were, oh my God, I can't believe he said we're not a Christian nation. If you objectively stand back and think about it, he's not exactly wrong. He's not exactly wrong. It's not popular to hold that position, but I fail to see how, if we're so godly, myself included, right? Because I like The Sword and the Stone. It was a funny movie, but it's got a wizard in it, and we're commanded not to be around wizards. America needs to repent of their sorceries and witchcraft, or America will be driven out of this land. Just as when God out of the wilderness had Joshua lead the Israelites to take the promised land, the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, the Perizzites, they were all driven out. Because why? Because they all did bestiality, witchcraft, child sacrifice, and charmers, enchanters, sorcerers. They all did all those things that God commanded the Israelites not to do. They did, and so he used Israel to judge them. And just as a righteous judge can't tolerate sin, right? God even judged Israel with Syria taking over the 10 tribes of Israel, and then Babylon, the tribe of Judah, right? So God judges. And then you got America acting just like the Canaanites. And then I find it interesting at this point in time, as our morality has plunged into lawlessness, idolatry, and wickedness, we face an ever-growing threat of nuclear war. I don't find this to be coincidental at all. And I didn't say this in the first one, but I also find it coincidental with Pinocchio. The fairy godmother has the power to make Pinocchio come to life. Isn't it interesting? In 2022, from 1940 to 2022, 82 years later, that Disney decides, hey, we're going to bring this back, right? It's like that just plants the seed to the next generation that, it's predictive programming of the Antichrist, this beast that's going to have power to give life into this image. It's just really bad. It's really bad. And I see it. I see it coming. I don't think America sees it coming. But that's what's going on. All right. And this has been a minute message with Micah. Whoa, and this is part 2, how Disney is, and Pinocchio is just one little puzzle piece in the big picture of it. So hope y'all got something out of this. Hope y'all got something out of this. God bless y'all. And I'm going to end this meeting for all.